Sports in the Spirit, the only show, listen, I know, where we take Catholic things. We take sports, we combine them into one, and it's awesome. I'm your host, Andy Shmura. This is going to be an interesting topic. So one thing to know about me, I don't like rules, okay? I'm not a big rules guy. I don't like being told what to do. I'm the kind of guy, if somebody tells me what to do, I'm likely to do the exact opposite. For example, there's a particular retreat center I was at one day, and I'm walking around, I'm holding my cup of coffee, it's the morning, I like coffee in the morning, so I'm just walking around drinking my coffee, right? And there is one room in particular where there is a sign that says, no food or drinks allowed in this room. I'm just staring at the sign, shaking my head. I can go anywhere else, okay? I can go to any other room, and nobody would have even cared. But there's this one particular room that I'm not supposed to go, and therefore I'm like, I have to do it. So not only am I intent on breaking this rule, but I'm going to break it as passive-aggressively as possible. As in, I'm going to stand in the doorway so that nobody else can walk in or out. And then I'll just take my coffee and I'll just hover it over the border, just right over the carpet, just for the sake of being as obnoxious as I can possibly be. I'm just going to keep doing that until somebody comes by to yell at me. Well, that's pretty much what happened. And there are people out there who can verify this is a completely true story. And, that's just the kind of guy that I am. I don't like rules. And so I can understand why the rules of the church might turn people off. People, they don't want to do it. I mean, we say that freedom comes from the church, but then we throw 1,000 restrictions at them in the next breath. And, have you read the Bible? If you've read the Bible, there are a lot of rules in it. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, there are rules there as well. There are things that we say you can and cannot do. There are a lot of things that people might want to do that we say is a sin. People don't always agree with it. It's hard. So the question becomes, how can freedom come from the church when we have a million rules to follow? The answer? 2 words. Bill Belichick. So most of you know who Belichick is. If you don't, he's the coach for New England Patriots. Very decorated coach. Probably the greatest coach in all of football. And he is also not one who likes following rules. He's made that very clear multiple times throughout his career. But one interesting thing that he did last year in 2019, he discovered an interesting loophole in the NFL's rulebook. Turns out you can commit multiple dead ball fouls in a row, and the clock actually doesn't stop. It'll just keep moving. So why does that matter? Well, think of it this way. There's a minute left in the game. It's 4th down. You have the ball. You have a slim lead. You just want to run down that clock to 0. But if it's 4th down, then you're going to have to punt the football. And yeah, you can run down the clock if it's moving, but you can only run it down to 20 seconds because there's a play clock that has 40 seconds on it. So the most you can do is run down the clock to 20 seconds, throughout the entire play clock, and then you have to punt it. The other team is going to have a chance to win. Well, that's what we all thought the situation was. Turns out Belichick realized that there's something else that you can do. If you just don't hike the ball at all, and you take the delay of game penalty, the clock keeps moving. So you could just keep taking delay of games over and over again, and the clock will just run out. And yeah, you lose 5 yards, but it doesn't matter because you're about to win the game anyway, and it's not a loss of down either. So you never lose the football. Well, Belichick did that exact thing in 2019 against the New York Jets. It worked to perfection. You can actually see him smirking after the game. He jokes, and he says, they probably shouldn't have let me do this. This is something that'll probably change at the end of the year. But for now, I'm just going to keep doing this. And so that's what he did, but not before somebody else used it against him. Later that season, 2019 playoffs come around. Mike Vrabel, Belichick's former assistant, who now coaches at Tennessee, he was going against the Patriots in the playoffs, and it was a similar situation. Tennessee was up, they were up a point, and clock was winding down. Tennessee took off over a minute of game clock just by taking multiple delay of games over and over again. You see Belichick is just livid on the sidelines, and you just kind of shrug your shoulders like, it's his rule. I mean, he's the one who came up with it. See, the thing is, once Bill Belichick decided that there was this loophole that he could exploit, there was nothing stopping the other 31 NFL teams from doing that same thing, including against him in the playoffs, which is exactly what happened. So, it brings a very important issue in light, though. Does freedom come from rules? In this case, the answer was yes, because the NFL, they ultimately changed this rule, so you can't do that exact thing. It's safe to say more freedom actually came from it. Teams had the ability to operate more freely because there was an addition of a rule. And really, you think about football. I mean, try playing the game without rules at all. Chaos. You can't actually do it. It'd be a complete disaster. So there is a world in which freedom comes from rules. I think that's what we get in the church. Guys, the rules of the church, they're not meant to restrict our happiness, right? They're not to prevent us from doing all these things that we might want to do. Really, all the rules are meant to do is just bring us one step closer to Jesus and one step away from the devil. I mean, they're meant to keep it so that we are walking in light rather than walking in darkness. And sometimes we're walking in darkness for a while and we don't realize how dark it is until we go into the light. And then we're like, dang, this is way better than I thought it was. That's all these rules are meant to do. That's what we mean when we say that there's freedom in the rules. The Jewish law, it's called the Torah, and that's the first 5 books of the Bible. It's just a massive rule book, the Torah, We think that Torah, when translated, means law. It actually doesn't. It means to teach. That's their way of looking at rules. It's a chance to teach people how to walk in the way of uprightness and be closer to the Lord and live in a way that makes Him and ultimately us happier. So I encourage you, when you look at all the rules that we have in the church, try to follow them as best as you can. Don't pick and choose what you're going to believe. It never ends well when you do it that way. You think it will, but it just doesn't. Try to go all in with it. And I think you'll find that there is actually a lot of freedom that comes from doing what the church is telling you to do. And we really are living in the light as opposed to the darkness. And that's really what it's all about. So from St. Thomas More in Appleton, Wisconsin, my name is Andy Shimura. Signing off. We'll see you next time.